And we are back with a very, actually special Bonk Tween the Cheeks episode Bonanza Extreme with Paul Brunetti at the Grand Island Comic Book Convention.
Yeah.
So we've got our own booth. We got a bunch of Bionicles, got my DJ stuff.
Yeah,
and
just been hanging out with Synergy Nation, just figuring it out for the weekend. It's been a
shout
fun
out
time
to-
so far.
Shout out to Synergy Nation Network. Shout out to this guy. Shout out to Lucian for having us. Yeah, he's great. But
Yeah, we've been having fun. I got my cosplay. I'm Warlock Holmes. Just a little bit of that pun energy
So good.
that I always bring. But yeah, we're like, while we're here, we might as well talk about the Bonks. Like, that's the most comic-y thing we do. So we actually do have a very special episode of Bonks Bionicle today. It is the beginning of the ignition arc of Bionicle that spanned from 2006 to 2009. So where we left off with the last episode, Taraga Bakama had just finished his story about him as a Toa, like defeating Makuta, and then fighting with Rudaka against like the spiders and everything. So he finishes his story as all the Toa Nuva, the ones we are familiar with up there, and all the Matoran are making their way back to Metro Nui. They're on boats. They finish up. They get to land, and they find Kitongu, which is that one guy, the Sasquatch dude we talked about earlier.
Yes.
And all those 6 kind of sages that helped them out, they're still there in the city hanging out. And also Taraga Duma, the one. So that was the character that Makuta impersonated when he was like kind of taking over Metro Nui and caused a great cataclysm. The actual Taraga Duma is there, and he's welcoming everyone back. Excited to see the new 6 Toa and the Toa of Light, which is like the prophecies were true. And it's just kind of exciting. And they start rebuilding. They've been working. They're in Metro Nui for a while, like rebuilding, like making it livable for the Matoran. And then one day, Duma, who he's kind of a astrologist, so he like watches the stars. Even though the city's underground, they still have stars because that's like kind of how it works. Because there's another sea underneath, and then there's also like another constellations of stars. And he's looking at the stars. He's like, "Okay, dude, some shit's going down." Like, Matanui's asleep, but he's also dying. Like, we have like months before Matanui dies, and if he dies, like him falling asleep just almost screwed everything up. So him dying is like basically hell on earth. Like, we're fucked.
So is this now present time?
Yeah, this
We're
is
no
present.
longer past. So this is
So, yeah.
continuing. From the
Taraga
present.
finished his story as they were making their way to Metro Nui again. They reunited with the people they left there. And then Taraga Duma's like, we need to save Metro Nui. He's dying. And the Toa are like, okay, well, we can fix this. Like, what do we got to do? He's like, there's this island on the surface, so the above sea, called Voya Nui. It's like a shitty place. Like it's like really harsh. The wild creatures of the rocky there will like rip people apart. It's like almost like a desert, but there's like an active volcano and there's like a little bit of green. But there lies the Mask of Light, the Kanohi Ignica, which is the Mask of Light. It is like, or Mask of Life. So it's like, it's even more powerful than the Mask of Time. It's a super powerful thing, but it resides there. We need you to go find it. And I'm like, okay, well, then they start getting ready out. And meanwhile, we're going to jump over. There's another group plotting a thing. So we're going to go back into prehistory real quick.
Gotcha.
This is before
Prehistory.
any of the stories we've talked about so far. This is way back before Matanui fell asleep. In the before times, we already talked about the Dark Hunters. Like, she was the Dark Hunter. The shadowed one that, like, fought with the mask with Makuta and Bakama. So back in the old times, the Shadow Hunter, or the Dark Hunters, were basically like a mercenary group. And there was a big group of them. And they're all kind of, like, pretty shitty people, but they were, like, just, like, usually victims of circumstance, like, just, like, problematic and, like, had, like, but they were, like, a big mercenary group. And some of the best soldiers from them were Skakti. And these are what Skakti are. They are a race, usually like super powerful, but they've been enslaved their entire for generations, and so they've worked as slaves usually. And there comes Zack, one of the Skakti.
Zack Tan.
Yeah,
Heck yeah.
Zack. He was like a miner. He had like the shittiest life ever. But he escaped and made his way to join the Dark Hunters. And he like fought alongside them. And the Dark Hunters at this point had like a war. Like they wanted to take over the city of Metronui at the time. The city of Metronui was being protected by the Toa. They had like legions of Toa, including the one Lee Khan, the one with the golden mask that we knew from the second movie that gave them all their masks and turned those other guys into Toa and sacrificed himself for Fakama. He had his own group of Toa that defended the city of Metronui, and they were fighting back against the Dark Hunters, right? And the one, I'm forgetting his name. I always forget the names, but in the second movie, one of the bad guys that got almost like spider-like, that was like chasing after Vakama and like actually attacked Lee Khan. He used to be a Toa, and he was part of the Toa group, but he betrayed the Toa and was trying to join the Dark Hunters and like help them get in. Lee Khan noticed it and was like cast him out of the city to join and like basically said, screw you. They won the fight against the Dark Hunters. Rudaka was actually a Dark Hunter back then. So Rudaka, the badass bitch from the third movie, that fucking slay queen badass bitch with the big boobas.
Big booba.
She was pissed at Nadiki is his name. Nadiki. She was pissed at Nadiki, and she's the one that transformed him using that spinnerack venom, like she did with the Toa from the last story. She transformed him into that big spider alien creature. And at the same time, Zack and other Skakti, they all were like, they didn't want to fight that war, and they were just like against it, so they tried to sneak away. But Rudaka caught them, and Zack took the blame, and she transformed him. But he didn't like get transformed, he actually just like disintegrated. But he didn't disintegrate, he actually was transformed into just like billions of like little insects. So his entire body's made up of like flies basically, and it takes he has to focus conscious energy to like hold himself together in one person, and like his brain, his consciousness is split up into like millions of bugs. But it gives him some cool powers, like he can like split himself apart. Like if someone swings at him, he can like just dissipate, come back together. He can go like spy, like put part of his body over here and like figure things out. So he has those cool powers, but he's also like in constant pain and just like he's slowly like being ripped apart at the same time. So because of that, though, he used that power to escape with those 6 of his Skakti friends, and they became the Paraka. Now, in Matoran language, Paraka basically means serial killer or like psychopath. Like, it's like a bad word, like, you're fucking crazy, evil man. And they're like, that's our name. We're the Paraka. And they're just like, gloat. And they're a team, but they're all in their own self-interest. And there's always a lot of infighting. They're always just like, very like, don't really like each other, but they work good together.
Yeah.
So they're hanging out at this point, around the same time that the Toa make it back to Metronui. They're hanging out, and they're like, dude, did you hear that Makuta got fucking destroyed by... Makuta got messed up by this Toa of Light. I'm like, really? Like, yeah, Makuta's dead. They're like, shoot. Like, his workshop, though, there's a lot of cool stuff there. Let's go check it out. So they make it back to where Makuta's body lays in ruins, Makuta. And they, like, look around. They try to mess with his mask, and it, like, just, like, blasts them with energy, so they're like, fuck that, screw it. They also find his spear. Now, his spear is the spear of transmutation, and it actually can split things apart or combine things. And the Paraka are doing their infighting, and one of them shoots, I think his name is Vate. Oh my god. There's so many weird names.
Dude, yeah, the whole series is weird names, man.
I think it's Vatar. Vatar, they shoot Vatar with this beam, and it splits him into 2 people. Like, he's still there, but there's also this, like, silver dude with, like, a cape and, like, kind of crazy that splits off of him, and he's just like, I'm you, but you're me. And he's just, like, this weird little creepy dude. And they're like, who the fuck is this guy? And he's, like, just being kind of creepy. And so they, like, try to shoot him back together, but that guy kind of freaks out, like, steals that spear, and then just takes off and leaves. And at that point, for some reason, they were, like, fighting over the body of Makuta. And all of a sudden, all of them at once, they get an idea. They're like, hey, we need to get the Kanohi Ignika, the Mask of Life. It's on this island. We need to go get it. Like it just comes into their head. Like that's a really powerful artifact. We could probably sell that for a lot or use it to like fuck people up. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And they just all together decide to go to Voya Nui, which is the island. And they actually make it there first. And so there are Matorns on this island, but they're like hardened, grizzled Matorns that have like lived shitty lives, like just struggled because like the Rahi there just like rip them apart. They have to like scavenge just for like water. Like they're screwed, you know. And so like these 6 Paraka come there, and the Matoran are like, this must be Toa, come to help us out, like save us. And the Zaktan's like, yeah, we're Toa. And they just like basically enslave the whole group. Like they just force them to like work for them and like torture them and like make fun of them. And they're like, and the Matoran there are like, well, I mean, they might be Toa, but like because this place is so harsh, maybe they sent us harsh Toa because that's who it takes to do this. So they're just kind of like getting gaslit and just like kind of like just like, okay, fine, thanks Toa. And they just like beat the shit out of them. And they build them this giant like temple there or like castle or hideout. They build this hideout, and inside there's this giant vat of this green fluid. They call it like antidermis. It's like this green fluid because you know the protodermis.
Is protodermis blue?
Protodermis is like a white blue kind of color. Gotcha. This is like a bright like neon green.
Antidermis.
And you always see Zaktan's just like kind of talking to it like hushy. And the rest of them are, again, there's a lot of infighting. There's the red Paraka's like doesn't really like Zaktan, and is always like kind of butting heads with him. And meanwhile, there's a couple of Matoran. There's 6 Matoran that are like, these guys are kind of shitty. This is like, they can't be Toa. Like they're not following Unity, Duty, or Destiny. Like they're pretty shitty. And so they try to like break off. And as they do that, Zaktan comes out. He takes some of that antidermis and puts them in these little balls. I had it, but it's probably in my bag somewhere. I don't want to go look for it. But they have little balls of energy. They just come out and just start shooting all the Matoran. Just like fucking pop, 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 pop. And it hits them, basically zombifies them. So he just like basically causes a genocide, just killing like, basically like zombifying hundreds of these Matoran, just like transforming them into like mindless slaves or drones. Oh my goodness. And they start like working the island. Zaktan wants them to go to the volcano and basically empty it. Like he won't tell the others why, but he wants them to empty it. And at this time, this is when the actual Toa show up. They get to the island, and they find those 6 Matoran hiding out. And the Matoran's like, who the fuck are you? You're like, we're Toa. And like, fuck yeah, you are. We know that trick. And they're like getting mad at him. Like, no, we really are. And a couple of the Paraka come and like catch him, or like try to catch those Matoran. And the Toa come out and fight them off. Are able to overcome just a couple of the Toa, or the Paraka, but they're about evenly matched, honestly. But they save those Matoran, and the Matoran are like, okay, well, we got to help these guys out. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the red Paraka's like, okay, fuck you, Zaktan. Like, you won't tell us what's going on. Like, I don't really like you. And then this giant monster comes up. Like, he's a brute. His name's Brutok. He has big golden armor. He's like 10 feet tall. He has this giant double-bladed sword, and he's just like this monster, man. He's like, he starts talking with Zaktan. Zaktan basically is giving him power. So that green fluid, when it shoots him, he like gets like, it's basically like roids. He just like gets powerful. And it's like, so the red guy tries to like attack Zaktan, but Brutok is like, don't fuck with him. He's like, okay. And so the Toa come out and try to fight, eventually get into an all-out fight with the Paraka. Like it's a pretty close fight. Honestly, they're basically 1-to-1. Like the Paraka don't have mass powers, but they do have like laser powers. Like some of them can like shoot laser beams. Some can shoot like confuse ray or like X-ray. Like they have like laser powers. Mm-hmm. And so there's a pretty decent fight. And then the Paraka just start fighting dirty. Like just do like tricky like shitty tactics. That's what they do. Yeah. And they've been fighting Toa for hundreds of years. These the Toa Nuva have never really fought these kind of people before, so they kind of get taken advantage of. They lose their masks, they lose their weapons, they get captured. Now, another meanwhile, there's a lot of meanwhiles in this story, because again, this is where it starts getting like really heavy. Yeah. So back at Metro Nui, there's 6 Matoran. Oh yeah, I forgot to say, Toa Nuva, the Toa of Light, Takua, he stayed back because he wanted, because the people said we need some protection. Like without you, there's nothing. Takua has stayed back with like these 6 Matoran, including T'Challa, Takua's best friend, the guy with the golden mask. Like Takua. Yeah.
Yep.
Him, that one, Water Girl, Holly. There's the most important I would say is Matau, who is he's of the Ice group. He's basically the translator for the old Ice Taraga.
Gotcha.
Like he literally, it's kind of racist. He speaks in like clicks. He goes, it's like a Inuit kind of language, and it's kind of racist. But he's like his translator, and so these guys are like, we need to help them out. Like there's got to be some shit going on down there. And Takua's like, yeah, let's go. And so they kind of sneak off and make their way on the ocean by themselves. And then at one point they come to this like archway, and all the 6 Matoran go through, but Takua can't. Like it won't let light creatures of light pass through, so he can't pass. So he has to go back. They start traveling alone, and they make it to a different island called. Let me make sure what his name, because this guy is important. This is Karzani. Great name. And the island of Karzani. They get there, and they see these, like, kind of messed up Matoran. Like, they're built wrong, like, really weirdly shaped, and their, like, minds are kind of cracked. And they are just like, what the fuck's going on? And they come to Karzani, who is this elder creature. He's, he basically, the island of Karzani was made for Matoran to go when they're like broken or hurt to get fixed and like rebuilt.
So is this where's this island at?
This is a different island. This is above the sea. It's kind of near where
the Paraka
Foya is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Foya Nui is, but it's on its own thing. And this what did I say his name was?
Karzani.
He looks creepy. He's big. His face is like cracked and like multiple different pieces building together. He was basically the fixer. Like when Matoran got hurt or corrupted, he would come and fix him up. But he's kind of been corrupted himself, and he basically imprisons any of the Matoran that come here and like rebuilds them and like breaks them apart and like reshapes them as his like kind of slaves. And these 6 Matoran are like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, you're mine now. Like, you're gonna stay here. And like, no, we're not. And T'Challa's like, we'll fight you. And he's like, bam, mass power. His mass power is he makes you see the worst timeline. So like, kind of like in Avengers, where that one witch girl can make you see like your deepest fear. That's basically what he does. And he's like, T'Challa comes up and he just hits him with it, and he's like, he flashes back to Takua and him fighting off the Rakshi, and the Rakshi just killing Takua, and then Taraga's like, you've doomed all of us. Now Makuda's gonna destroy everything. And so he's just like gets like put out of commission. They're all scared, and they're trying to convince him like, hey, we need to help out. Like Matanui's dying. He's like, I don't believe in Matanui. Like he's just like basically like he's so isolated and sheltered in his planet and in his own like pain.
Yeah.
And he actually, part of his craziness comes from was that whenever he causes people to relive those, he has to relive it too. So he sees like their like pain and suffering.
Wow.
And so like he captures them, he puts new masks on their faces that are like weird, and they become basically part of his minions for a while, and they're like fighting out. And Motoro, the ice guy, he's like fed up with his like, we need to save him. He's like, we got to save, like, and he's like stands up to Karzani, and Karzani's like, he's like, come on, take me, like fuck me up, and he shoots Karzani with that mass power. And he sees the worst timeline where Makuda wins everything. Makuda's taking over, or Makuda kills Matanui and like enslaves everything. He's like, they aren't real. And like, it doesn't affect Matao or Mataro. Sorry, it doesn't affect him because he's like, it almost inspires him. He's like, this is what we need to stop. Like but Karzani gets fucked up and it's like, holy shit, this is all real. And like processing it. And during that kind of confusion, they escape in these. Sorry, I'm getting distracted.
No, there's
You could not have written that.
They sneak out. They sneak out into these canisters and fly off. And while they're in these canisters, they get into these canisters and get off the island and are headed towards Foya Nui. And while they're in these canisters, the red sun or the red star is shining, and then a thunderstorm starts, and all the canisters get hit by lightning. and their masks that they put on fuse to them, and they begin to transform into the Toa Ignica. They're Toa Ignica, based on for the name of the mask. They are like they got weird like kind of jelly kind of faces a little bit. Like this is when they were kind of building up on their building skills, like using more intricate parts and stuff. But their mask powers are super cool. Like the black one can fly. The green one, he can read minds, like he can read thoughts. Matoro, the white, he can astral project, like he can just teleport out of his body. And one of my favorite superpowers that I've never really heard before, the Toa of Earth, he has the mask of accuracy. Like he can just shoot and always hit. Well, always you know exactly what's going to hit. But also, if things are coming at him, he knows exactly where they're going to hit that way too. So he can like dodge out of the way, or like
That's
just
sick.
knows exactly how these things are going to work. Like he can just see it in his head. And then Holly, the water, she has the mask power of like hers is kind of lame, but she can sense where the mask of light is, or the mask of life is, and she can like see it when she's like. But she gets like headaches when it's like, and the closer she gets, the better she feels.
Yeah.
So they make it to the island. They're on their way down. They get there at the island. Now, flashback to the Paraka. They had captured. Again, this is a lot. Like I said, this is where it starts getting complicated. So again, we get the Paraka. They're capturing the Toa Nuva, our original Toa, which are up there. They have their masks off and everything, and they want to dump them in the volcano. And so Zack tells his dudes to go drop them in the volcano, and they're making their way over there, and all the zombified Matoran are like cleaning out the volcano, and it begins to erupt. And so the Paraka are like, screw this, let's just throw them here. They'll get covered by the lava. Like, we don't need it. And they drop them there and like leave. And obviously the 6 Matoran that are still like rebels, they save them and bring them and free them from that area. And then so they break out, they're freed, they go once again to the actual stronghold, but Brutaka's there and literally knocks him out one punch. Like just one swipe, he's just like, because they're like 6 foot tall, he's like 10 foot. He's just a big muscle man with this giant 2-bladed sword, and just one swipe knocks them to the ground, and just, they're out of commission. Now, again, they just escaped, they get back captured. Really doesn't change a lot. But yeah, they're captured. The other 6 Toa Ignica, make it to the island, and there they find this other giant dude called Axon. He's the guy with the big axe, just kind of big, bulky dude with this giant axe, similar size to Brutaka size, and he's like, dude, things are getting fucked. Like, I am part of the Brotherhood of Matanui, which is basically like an Illuminati group that like makes sure the big stuff doesn't get fucking lucky.
Yeah.
And he's like, my Brutaka used to be part of that organization, but after the Great Cataclysm, he kind of lost hope and like gave up and has been more focused on himself. And we can't let him and the Paraka get the Mask of Life. And so he helps them break into the main castle. A big fight goes down. Like, it's crazy. The Ignica, they have their own blasters, like the Paraka do, but they shoot prototurns. And when they hit the zombified Matoran, it basically reverts them back to their normal shape. So they're fighting off the Paraka, and Brutaka comes out, and he and Axon just get into an all-out brawl. And it's a pretty sweet fight. Like, they're
Brutaka and Axon?
Yeah. Ooh. And Brutaka's starting to lose, and then he gets shot by some of that antidermis and just starts getting swole again and just getting ready to like beat Axon. And Axon goes up to that vat of the antidermis and just smashes it. And it just breaks, and you hear Brutaka scream, and you also hear another voice scream. They don't know where it's coming from. They just hear another voice as that shatters. There's 2 screams, and Axon's like, that's what Axon says. And Axon, he has the mask of truth, so he can't tell a lie. He can tell when anyone's lying, and he can also like help with like mental problems. Axon's like the good old boy. Like, he's just the straight and narrow, like, I'm gonna save you. And then he finally ends up overpowering Brutaka, and he's like, I can fix you, brother. Like, I'm sorry, like. And after that happens, the Ignica, they kick ass or they kick the Paraka's ass. If Paraka like sneak off, and they find out that Zack had been talking to that vat, and he was actually talking to Makuta. The spirit of Makuta was in the vat. And
that's the one that screamed?
Yeah, and that's what put all their minds on the same thought of going to get the Mask of Light. Like, when they were in Makuta's workshop and they like messed with his body, they were able to like get that plan. So he's been calling them the whole time. And so they sneak down and they find out that Zack finally reveals to them that the Mask of Life is at the bottom of the volcano. There's 777 steps, and it is guarded by the Brotherhood of Matanui. And they start sneaking their way down there. The Toa Ignica also using Holly, who can kind of...
so the Toa Ignica are like the original crew from the first movie, right?
That's the Toa Nuva. The Toa Ignica are T'Challa and those guys that got transformed by the lightning.
They're the new Mask
Toa.
Of Light?
No.
Okay.
So the characters are introduced, but they're Matoran at that point. Like T'Challa's in there, that one water girl. That's like
so those are all like the kids, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
They are now Toa alongside, and they free the Toa Nuva, who like help out the island, and they go and the Ignica go down to get the mask.
Gotcha.
Now there's trials in this volcano that they have to fight through. The Paraka get there first. The first trial is like a trial of fear. Like they see their old slave master like telling them like, go back, like we're fucking you up, and then he transforms into the Dark One, which is their old leader of the Dark Hunters, the Shadowed One, which you talked about, who fought for the Mask of Time against them. He's just appears, even though we know he's dead. They're like freaking out and fighting them. Honestly, they're just brute dumbness and strength allows them to like push through that that trial. And then a lot of trials happen. Basically, they do a trust trial where they'll have to pull a lever at the same time, and obviously the Paraka screw each other over for that one. They all get like mutated a little bit, and they may eventually make it down to the bottom first, while the Ignica are doing their own trials. Again, those trials really don't matter. They're just like show off some of the Brotherhood of Matanui, which is interesting, but it's just a lot of time. So we've already been talking for a while. But so when the Paraka get down to the bottom, they find the final boss, and it is none other than Vatar, the half of that other dude that split out.
Oh, the guy that with the
Yep. So his story, he sneaks down there way early. He finds the Mask of Life, and it fuses to him, and it rips him apart and rebuilds him over and over again. Like, he just can't die, but he's being, like, his head has been fused with the Mask of Life, so he's got, like, his main face, and then this mask behind him, that's the Mask of Life. He had, like, a little spider friend that's transformed into this giant, like, monster with these big jaws, and he's, like, riding him, and he's got the staff of transformation, and he just wipes the floor with the Paraka. Like, the Paraka come up, he fuses two of the Paraka together into like this weird like Minotaur looking thing, and it just like bites through them. They don't even land a touch on Zack, and so they just get screwed. Then the Toa Ignica make it down there, and they start fighting Vatan, and like, the thing about it is he is fused with the Mask of Life. So even if they hit him with like a full-powered like killing blow, he just he has the Mask of Life. He can't die. True, and actually, at one point, they managed to knock him into the lava, and then he rises out of it. And so when the Mask of Life transforms, like revivifies something, it like builds it, makes it more powerful. So the snake or the spider thing he was riding on turns into this giant dragon that he's flying on.
Oh my god!
And he's just like beating the shit out of the Ignica. But right before they went down there, Axon gave them a little ball. It's one of those protodermises, but it's basically kind of has time energy in it. So it freezes. So they give it to the guy with the power of like accuracy, and he's just like, they distract him for long enough, barely sacrificing themselves, as he shoots and hits Zacktan and freezes him in time for just like a moment. And Mataro makes his way up there and like touches the Mask of Life. It just like comes off into his hand, like it's almost as if it wanted me to have it. That's foreshadowing, but we'll go into that later. And as he pulls it down, it flies out of his hands up out of the volcano. And they chase after it, and they're chasing it out to the edge of the island, and see him go over the water and just fall into like the middle of the ocean. And yeah. And so after that, the the Paraka are like, fuck, we need to get out of here. They scatter off.
Yeah.
Axon standing over Butaka and like trying to save him when this other creature appears. And like Axon and Butaka are big, but he's like even giant. This guy's name's Botar, and he's one of the heads of the Brotherhood of Matsunui.
Oh,
and he's
shit.
like, Butaka needs to come with me. Like he needs to get out of here. His mask power is he can teleport, like through time and like dimension. He can teleport through dimension and like space. Like he's OP. But he just comes and he's like, we got to take this guy out. Like he's broken the rules. He's like, but there's still good in him. Like Axon's like, I love him. I'm like, no, I can fix him. And he's like, no. He's like, unless you want to come with and also be punished, like he can't be here. And he's like, I understand. And Botar zaps out with Butaka, and Axon vows to like save his friend. He's like, I'll bring him back, I swear. And that's so that's basically the end of this arc. After that, they're like, okay, well, we need to get the mask from this ocean spot. It's like, this is that the mask went into the pit, and the pit is like an old jail, like where the worst of like in ancient times went. That's where Botar would transport people when they were like evil, or like just the worst of the worst are down there. But when the Great Cataclysm happened, the jail broke open, so there's just a pit full of the worst monsters in the universe, and that's where the mask is, and they need to go save it. And that's where we're going to start the next episode. This isn't as fun when I'm not drunk, but it was still good.
Dude.
But this one's where it starts getting a little more rambly, you know? Because there's a lot of stuff going on.
That's a lot going on, but holy shit, dude.
So the Toa Ignica and the Toa Nuba, we got 13 Toa right now. We got the Paraka and doing their thing with Zack who's just... And there was more that happened with, like, the Paraka. Like, I did skim... Like, even though I rambled, I skimmed a lot. Like, it is wild. And,
oh my goodness! No wonder they have a rap.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The rap has nothing to do with the story. Basically, they made a Paraka rap, and they actually toured with it. And like the lore was that this guy was captured by the Paraka and forced to rap for them. And so it was just kind of a funny story. But yeah. So that was Ignition Part 1. We will do Into the Pit next.
Is it called Ignition because the Toa Ignica?
Toa no, it's for the Kanohi Ignica, the mask.
Oh, okay.
And they're called the Toa Ignica for the mask. The mask of life. The mask of life is a really important thing, and we'll see what happens next. Yeah.
That was riveting. Yeah, thank you all so much for watching.
We hope the audio was good, and we know there's a lot of people coming up and out.
But yeah, thank you again, Paul, for your fucking infinite Bionicle knowledge. Jesus Christ.
It's not infinite. That's not even scratching the surface, guys. The lore is so deep. But yeah.
Hope you like it. If you have any questions or feedback, comment below. Check us out on sinnation.net /cheeks.
Yep, I'm Warlock Holmes.
And I'm Boss Buzz.
Keep it real.
Keep it real.